Chairman, thank you. Director Wray, this subcommittee has invested hundreds of millions of dollars in Stop School Violence Act since its enactment in 2018. As you would know, these programs support school resource officers, hardening of our schools, anonymous reporting hotlines, threat assessment programs, and training for school personnel. Your team at the FBI has some of the best minds in the world when it comes to emergency situations. Have you heard from your experts? What have you heard from your experts about the most effective ways to prevent and respond to these terrible events?
So I think what I would say is we're doing a number of things on this front to try to help harden, if you will. And I hate the fact that we even have to talk about hardening our schools, but it is a reality that they have become targets. So we, in addition to all of our investigative work, our bread and butter, you know, the cases we're bringing of different sorts, violent crime, terrorism crime, gang crime, et cetera, we provide all sorts of support through training and capacity building. So we have trained, I think, something like 110,000 different law enforcement officers on active shooter response. We have put out a whole bunch of different PSAs and instructional videos to schools, to school resource officers, to school administrators, to houses of worship, to communities, as well as to law enforcement to help them better defend. And there's a host of information in there. In addition to that, we're obviously providing forensic support through our lab. We're doing shooting incident reconstruction. I mentioned in my opening statement in Uvalde, we have evidence response. That's often one of the things that we are quickly asked to provide by our state and local partners. But that's, of course, after the fact. And what we're trying to do is figure out how to better get in front of it.
We'd welcome your advice and suggestions. Last year in this room, you and I spoke at least briefly about counterintelligence threats along the southern border. 2 weeks earlier, I'd had the opportunity to question the Attorney General about the cartel's activities there. The purpose of those questions a year ago were to address what I'd learned on my visits to McAllen, Texas, that last year, that just previous to those hearings. Which is, while immigration dominates the conversation about the southern border, there are also grave national security threats there. This was confirmed just yesterday when an FBI search warrant unsealed in Ohio revealed that an assassination plot against former President George W. Bush included plans to smuggle assassins into the United States from Mexico. According to press reports, the suspect, an ISIS operative, was recorded claiming to have just smuggled 2 individuals associated with Hezbollah into the United States. Yesterday's events compel me to start again on this topic that we discussed last year. What's the FBI's assessment of our national security threats along our border, southern border in particular, but borders generally? And what can you tell us in this setting about the number of known or suspected terrorists or special interest aliens who've crossed into the United States from Mexico?
Well, certainly border security is a major challenge that cuts across a whole host of the programs that we serve. And the national security piece of it that you're highlighting is one part of it. Obviously, I'm very proud of the work that our folks did on the Ohio case that you mentioned. We obviously work closely with Secret Service on that to coordinate that, to make sure that it was all done in a way that prevented any true threat from coming to fruition. Certainly, any porous point of entry is a potential vulnerability that bad actors of all sorts, including national security threats, can seek to exploit. And I've been down to all of our field offices that have border crossings as part of their area of responsibility. I've had CBP folks show me around so I can see firsthand what they're dealing with, and they have a heck of a challenge on their hands. And we, through our joint terrorism task forces in particular, work very closely with our DHS partners to try to bring the counterterrorism dimension to the threat. I think that's probably all I would be able to say about it in an open hearing, but certainly you're right to be focused on it as an issue of concern.
Perhaps we'll have the chance to have a closed session as well. Chairman, thank you.